Women came to learn from her. Children lingered by her stall, and even the elders who once questioned her audacity found themselves nodding in approval. Each new visitor, each compliment became a stitch in the tapestry of her confidence. Rosalyn realized that she was no longer just surviving. She was shaping her own story, one carefully measured ingredients at a time. The restaurant was a small building, yes, but inside it was alive with laughter, conversation, and the unspoken magic of a woman reclaiming her life. Jeremy, sensing that his control was slipping, grew desperate. His visit to the village became more frequent, more explosive. He would criticize the smallest details, the color of the walls, the arrangement of the tables, even Rosalyn's attire. But Rosalyn had changed. She no longer flinched or apologized. Instead, she catalogued his outbursts, noting patterns in his aggression, and using that knowledge to plan her next moves. One evening, when Jeremy accused her of shaming him in front of the village, she simply smiled. "I am not ashamed of living," she said softly. Jeremy's face reddened with fury, but the words had power. They were not cries of rebellion, they were statements of truth, unassailable and quiet, and they rattled him more than any shout ever could. Robert continued to provide steady support, offering guidance and finances, marketing and village diplomacy. One afternoon, as they walked past the river that ran through the outskirts of the village, he said, "Rivers carve valleys not by force, but by persistence. Your patience is your greatest strength." Rosalyn nodded, feeling the weight of his words. Each day, she moved forward, making careful decisions, training a few loyal assistants, and expanding the menu to include new dishes inspired by her grandmother's tales. She felt a growing connection to her ancestors, as if their voices whispered encouragement and wisdom through the wind, through the rustle of palm leaves and the rhythm of village life. By night, when the compound fell silent, Rosalyn would write feverishly in her journal, sketching ideas for expansion, noting Jeremy's behavior, and documenting every small victory. The fire within her had grown into a steady blaze, and she knew that she would never allow it to be extinguished. Jeremy's threats, once terrifying, now felt like the flaying of a man who could no longer contain a force far greater than his own ego. Rosalyn's liberation was no longer a distant dream. It was a living reality, unfolding before her eyes. One day, one meal, one quiet act of courage at a time. As the weeks passed, Rosalyn's restaurant became a heartbeat of the village. Morning sunlight glimmered off the clay walls as traders, neighbors, and travelers came to taste her creations. The air was thick with the aroma of roasted yam, spicy soups, and fresh palm oil simmering over the fire. Each plate she served carried a story. The bitterness of kola nuts that reminded her of struggle, the sweetness of honey that spoke of hope, and the warmth of stews that embodied resilience. Patrons lingered, sharing laughter and stories, and soon the restaurant became more than a place to eat. It was a gathering spot for connection, learning, and inspiration. Rosalyn's quiet determination had transformed into tangible influence, and with each passing day, she felt her confidence swell. Jeremy, sensing that his control was slipping, became increasingly unpredictable. He appeared at the restaurant unannounced, scrutinizing every corner, criticizing every dish, and making pointed remarks about her abilities. Yet, Rosalyn remained calm, her words measured. "I cook to feed, not to please fear," she said one evening when Jeremy's voice thundered across the clay walls. His anger was explosive, but it no longer shook her. She had learned to navigate his temper, turning his attempts at intimidation into predictable obstacles. And as she did, she discovered a quiet satisfaction in knowing that the chains he had tried to place around her life were weakening with every act of courage she undertook. Robert's presence continued to be a source of steady encouragement. He offered practical advice, such as sourcing fresh ingredients from nearby villages, negotiating fair prices, and maintaining strong relationships with customers. But he also provided something deeper, a reflection of hope and wisdom. One afternoon, as they walked along the riverbank, he remarked, "The river does not demand permission from the stones it flows past. Neither should you seek validation from those who fear your strength." Rosalyn smiled, feeling the truth of his words settle in her chest. Her dream of a restaurant had grown beyond ambition. It had become a lifeline, a sanctuary, and a declaration of independence. By night, she would retreat to her journal, documenting her progress, noting Jeremy's patterns and sketching new dishes and ideas for expansion. Each word was a promise to herself, each page a step towards liberation. She felt the presence of her ancestors in these quiet moments, as if their wisdom and strength flowed through her veins. The fire of hope within her had become a blaze, and she understood that it could no longer be extinguished. Jeremy's threats were merely ripples on the surface of a river that had already begun to carve its own path. Rosalyn was no longer the woman she had once been. She was becoming unstoppable, and the world around her would soon have no choice but to take notice. One morning, the village awoke to a quiet stir of excitement. Word had spread that Rosalyn's restaurant had prepared a special feast to celebrate the harvest, a rare event that drew traders and villagers alike. Children ran barefoot across the dusty paths, their laughter echoing like music against clay walls, while women carried baskets of yams and palm oil to contribute to the celebration. Rosalyn moved among them with a calm authority, her hands steady as she directed helpers, stirred pots, and ensured every guest felt welcomed. This feast was more than food. It was a statement, a public declaration that she had survived, endured, and risen. The scent of roasted meats, spicy stews, and freshly baked bread wove through the air, a tangible symbol of her hard-won autonomy. Jeremy arrived late, his polished shoes stirring dust, his face twisting between irritation and disbelief. "What is all this nonsense?" he demanded, voice sharp enough to cut through the chatter. Yet Rosalyn did not flinch. "It is a celebration," she said softly, eyes steady. "A celebration of life, effort, and community. Something I think you have forgotten." His jaw tightened, and for a brief moment, the villager saw the uncertainty flicker behind his facade of control. He realized that his presence here could not erase the work Rosalyn had poured into her dream, nor could it silence the growing admiration of those who had once doubted her. Robert watched from a quiet corner, a subtle smile playing on his lips. He handed Rosalyn a bundle of fresh herbs, nodding towards the feast. "You have planted more than seeds of food," he said. "You have nurtured courage, respect, and hope. That is something no man can take from you." Rosalyn felt warmth in her chest, knowing that every small act of defiance, every carefully planned decision, had brought her here. She moved through the guests with grace, her hands guiding, her voice encouraging, and her eyes shining with pride. That night, when the last of the guests had departed, Rosalyn sat by the fire in her compound, journal open, pen moving swiftly across the page. She documented the day, noting the small victories, the moments of hesitation from Jeremy, and the subtle glances of respect from villagers who once doubted her. She felt the presence of her ancestors, as if their spirits whispered encouragement in the crackle of the flames. The ember of hope, once small and fragile, now roared like a blaze that could not be contained. Rosalyn understood that this feast was only the beginning. She had survived the storm of fear and manipulation, and now she was building something far greater, a life of purpose, independence, and unshakable strength. The next morning, Jeremy returned to the compound with a fury that seemed to simmer beneath his skin like molten iron. His eyes darted around, inspecting every corner of Rosalyn's space, searching for a flaw he could exploit.